Indian other scholars told he's helpful in Tibet. And everyone agreed. They wrote back to now. If you are able to come, you can come. If not, then please write a commentary on it. You know?
So, the letter he wrote back explaining, I can't come back to India now to my teacher because of the war and the situation is difficult. The letter became a long treatise on Buddhist thought and Buddhist practice, called The Path on the Light on the Path to Enlightenment. This is available in several English translations. Yeah, you can see it. Geshe, Sonam Geshe, Sonam,
Yeah.
I forget his name, but you can find it. Atisha is the name. And it's a really wonderful text, maybe 60, 80 pages. A wonderful condensation of Buddhist teachings and the Buddhist path. And I think he could have written such an excellent text because he was not in his home country. He was writing to foreigners who were trying to understand the Buddhist path, and so he had to explain it in a very particular way. But when he sent it back to people in India, they were very impressed with it. They said, my goodness, if you can write this kind of thing, then you should stay in Tibet, but only if you can write a commentary on it so that we can have more of your wonderful ideas about this text.
Well, I have to tell this to Atisha now. We are trying to talk about the Tara. Then we Tibetan have the very rich teachings, culture, because him.
Because of Atisha?
Atisha.
Atisha is highly, highly revered in Tibetan history. He's like the Thomas Jefferson or something. He really got Buddhism firmly planted. He's worshipped deeply.
Something 30 or 40 years old, he's learned Tibetan language. The first Tibetan, Indian teacher wrote in Tibetan. That's the first book.
The first time an Indian ever wrote a text in Tibetan, so he learned the language well.
Yeah. So therefore, in the first Tara told him to good, useful. Why the connection? Therefore, I'm telling Tara and telling him to go to Tibet is useful. So then now it shows Tara prediction, his compassion, then our good fortune. We Tibetan get all this in Indian. We could the rich and the philosophy get in Tibetan translate. Now we have in the world richest philosophy or richest language and the richest we call the practice. So as practice now. Khanis of Tara and Avalokiteshvara, the Khanis of Avalokiteshvara mean, and the Khanis of Atisha mean this present is both Khanis of Dalai Lama and Panchen Lama. We have the opportunity to continue the teaching since the teaching country in Tibet. Dalai Lama, Panchen Lama always took it like the rebirth. All the lineage each other have still the Buddha 2,500 years ago taught the teaching, the same teaching warm without missing. We have this one. Therefore, so we have and now we can do little touch among the little bit like the Buddha teaching like the ocean. From the ocean, then we here taken the drop of the water to test to the Tara meditation.
Can I give a small summary?
Yeah.
Yeah, just a brief summary. He's illustrating the role of Tara really as a devotional object in Tibetan culture, and as he said, making some of the complexity short, the Bodhisattva Avalokiteshvara was concerned to save all beings from samsara and pain and ignorance, but couldn't and was frustrated and cried and tears dropped to the ground. And then Tara arose, the lotus flower came out, and Tara arose and looked up at Avalokiteshvara and said, "Don't be so discouraged, I will help you." Long story short, then Tara later on manifests to the Indian master Atisha and says, "Yeah, you should go to Tibet and help the Tibetan people." Atisha eventually gets to Tibet, and his contribution to Tibetan Buddhist culture is unsurpassed. His literary, religious, and devotional activities in Tibet are of heroic proportions, and Tibetans trace the strength of their Buddhist culture to Atisha, absolutely. And so out of that then comes the relationship between the Panchen Lama and the Dalai Lama, who historically, I said, for 600 years have been authorizing each other's reincarnations, but in Tibetan mythology, they go way, way back to various Buddha lands, and they're the disciples of this Buddha and that Buddha, and they've been alternating in their relationship for a long time, and one of them was the embodiment of Tara, and a couple of other details that I didn't quite get. But the notion here is that Tara is deeply related to the capacity for the Tibetans to practice Buddhism in the first place. And the Tibetans believe, and I think they're correct, that Tibetan Buddhist culture is probably the richest Buddhist culture on the planet. It doesn't mean that they have the most realized practitioners, but it means that they have preserved the ethical teachings, the philosophical teachings, the religious practices of all of the Buddhist traditions in Tibet. And these rich traditions are really great, and many of them are traced back to Atisha and traced back to Tara's urgings. So these particular connections are felt very strong by someone like Rinpoche. And of all the vastness of those teachings, we'll take just a little snippet of them today, and he'll share with you something about Buddhist teachings through some more teachings on Tara.
Now, remind me how go back to the Dalai Lama and Panchen Lama. And Buddha, Siddhartha, with the Buddha taught the second wheel of teaching in Vakshalpiks.
Yeah, there's a theory about how the Buddha had different stages of teaching in his lifetime, called the first turning of the wheel. Turning the Dharma wheel means his first time he taught, then the second time, and then the third time. But each one has a different kind of teaching. The first one is on the Four Noble Truths, and the second one is on the teaching of emptiness, the ultimate truth of emptiness. That's called the second turning of the Dharma wheel.
Yeah, I want to tell the connection, how it long goes back to Dalai Lama. Dalai Lama, this Heart Sutra, you know.
Heart Sutra.
Heart Sutra.
Very important Buddhist text.
That's the question answer between Shariputtara and Avalokiteshvara. Dalai Lama, the reincarnation of the Avalokiteshvara, the Buddha's time. And
at the Buddha's time, supposedly, there are two disciples, Avalokiteshvara, who was then a human being, not yet a deity, and Shariputra. They have a conversation in this text, the Heart Sutra, which is about a 2-page text that's celebrated in all northern Buddhist countries. And at that time, the Avalokiteshvara was the previous incarnation of the Dalai Lama.
yeah, the first with this teaching appeared in the world. He was first main disciple of Buddha. And the Panchen Lama, we could Buddhi in Tibetan called Rapjur, Papa Rapjur. Papa Rapjur is the great scholar who really all the collected this, the Perfection Wisdom Sutra. You can read the text because Rapjur says Rapjur, all the Rapjur, Rapjur Subhuti. So that since then, both Dalai Lama and Panchen Lama, before Buddhism came to Tibet, they played a role in India. After Buddhism came to Tibet, since then they play a role until in the 14th centuries. Then 14th centuries, then Dalai Lama and the Panchen Lama, Dalai Lama come the name of the Dalai Lama's come name of the Dalai Lama. Panchen Lama is one of the disciples of Tsongkhapa Gyatso Katuje.
So the actual titles, formal titles of Dalai Lama and Panchen Lama don't emerge until the 14th century. But the beings who received these titles, once those institutions emerged historically as heads of particular temples and lineages in Tibet, those names were given to them, but those individuals themselves in their previous reincarnations, under different names, had long-time relationships, and those relationships culminated in the 14th century in the particular historical relationship between the one called Dalai Lama and Panchen Lama, and the two of them have maintained that relationship for 600 years.
Sorry, this one goes a little bit off from our...
He's doing a tangent, but he apologizes. We'll get there.
Really good. Now we should go there. Now I thought it would be important who she is and how she gives us opportunities. And Tara, as I told earlier, she is 3 names. Rol Mamin. No, the mantra, Tara mantra called Om Tare Tutare Ture Soha. There are 10 syllables. 10 syllables. Om, because there are 3 syllables.
Syllables. So 10 syllables of her mantra. I'll give you the mantra later on.
In the Om have the 3. A, O, Ma. Okay. A, O, Ma comes together. Om. Some Indian people pronounce it Om. then come the other three. Okay, so they are body, speech, man of the Tara.